Welcome all of you fellow Arcanists out there to the Frith Guild podcast, where we explore an amazing world full of mystical creatures and their partners. Next week we will begin our in-depth look at Book 4 of the Frith Chronicles, Plague Arcanist. But today, Eric got an opportunity to sit down with Ryan Tang, co-author of The Crown Tournament, and the second book written with our own Shami Stovall, Crown Tournament 2, which is being released today. So, without further ado, here are Eric Smith and Ryan Tang.
Welcome back to the Frith Guild podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and today, instead of getting right into the next book in the series, Plague Arcanist, we will be sitting down with an author, none other than Ryan Tang.
Hi, nice to meet everyone.
And Ryan is the author of the Mimic and Me series, Captain Overdrive series, Tower Apocalypse series, and others. Plus, most recently, the co-authored Kirin Arcanist series with Shami Stovall, the second of which, Crown Tournament 2, will be available the same day as this interview, so it works out perfect.
Yeah, I'm excited for everyone to read the book. I feel like we put a lot of work into it, and I think it's a great book. So I'm really excited for people to see it.
We are too. I know by this point in time, I'll probably be sitting down reading it myself because I got to know what's going on. Now, Goodreads has you listed as author or co-author of 27 distinct works, all the way from your better known works to Ryan's Solar System, which I think was a children's book. Is that correct?
That might just be misattributed to me. What's this book called?
This is Ryan's Solar System.
Hang on, let me go to my Goodreads and see. Look, I'm trying to increase my my book count, so I'm happy to take that one. No, this book is definitively, I see it right here, the Ryan Solar System story. This book is definitely misattributed to me. It does make me wonder who, it has been assigned to me, perhaps just because it says Ryan on it, but no, the other ones, I'm on the page now. The other ones, I have written, I recognize the covers. I'm like, okay, this is my work. But the other one, the Ryan Solar System one, I actually do not know about that one, but it does sound funny.
Well, so all of them in the last 4 years, was that correct? Like most of these books were in the last 4 years?
Yeah, all in the last 4 years, yeah.
And then let's let you brag about and tell us about a little bit more about you, your books, kind of how you got to where you're at right now.
So I think I mentioned this, but I used to have like a writing background, writing like articles about gaming or sports. So I like, funny story about that I'll tie back in later on. But, so I used to really like doing that. And, then, obviously I wanted to kind of challenge myself and try to write like longer, stories when I was working in finance. I used to work on New York time, living in the Bay Area. So I would basically commute, really early in the day, like kind of like, like maybe get on the BART, like the public transit here at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and then go back home at like, maybe like 2 or 3, you know what I mean? And because of that, like, I was kind of just in a situation where I was just kind of on the train by myself for an hour each day or 2 hours each day, every day. So I was like, oh, well, it'd be kind of fun to start, writing. Like I always wanted to do that. So I wrote my first book, which is like a mech story, and just because I like it, I think it's cool. And then I was like kind of showing around to my friends, and they're like, oh, this is pretty cool. And my friend Kirin, who's like also really into writing, that type of thing, she was like kind of like reading it, and she was like, oh, you're actually like pretty good at writing. Like I thought. I remember she was telling me, she was like, oh man, like I thought you were like, I thought you were like delusional or something when you were like, I'm just gonna write a whole book. But it turns out you actually were able to write a whole book pretty quickly. So I was like, okay, cool. So I feel like with the support of her and like family and other friends like that, I was like, all right, cool. I really like writing. So let's kind of see how this goes. And then that was right around when, I was just inside for COVID. So I was like, okay, well, like in that case, I'm just going to really try to go hard at this and try to get really good at writing, become like an actual, full-time writer. So I was like going really hard at it, to pretty much not that great success. Like I was like, oh man, like because like I feel like everyone else is also very good. So I was just like, okay. So I wrote a few series. The one that I had that did pretty okay was my Overdrive series, which got picked up by Athon. But then even then, it wasn't like really doing good. It was just kind of like, all right, like it's it's like kind of there and people are reading it and they're liking it, but it's not like it's not nearly enough to make a living off of or anything like that. But then what happened was that I actually I kept training and improving, and that was actually when I got in contact with Shami and her husband John. So I actually used to play at the same game store as them. Like we used to play Magic at the same game store, but I didn't really
Okay.
know them. I don't really remember them. Shami says she knew me at the game store, but maybe she did. I don't really remember. But regardless, just like kind of like reaching out and talking, and then we started like I got a lot of good feedback on my writing from them and things of that nature, which allowed me to improve. And I also met Cassius, my co-author on many of these series, kind of also through a random reach out. Like he actually read my Overdrive series, and then he reached out because he was like, "Hey, I actually think that this is a really good series. Like, I'd like to work together with you." And I was like, oh, "Okay, cool." So that's kind of how it happened. So I've been able to have quite a bit more success and quite a bit more kind of like learning opportunities just from like working with people. Like I feel like when you're kind of like working with people, you got to have like a lot of like interface, and you're talking to each other, and you're just like, "Oh, this worked. This line didn't work. This worked." And the thing that I was going to tie into is that I feel like one of my fundamental weaknesses when I first got started was, when you write like sports articles or like gaming articles, it's very different from writing a book. Like, like you're kind of, the flow is very, very different. Because in a, I feel like this was one of my fundamental weaknesses, was why some of my other books struggled, which is that in a book, you're trying to like describe the entire scene and tell everyone what happened. Whereas in a sports article or a gaming article, you're describing what happened to people who like already watched the game, who already watched the sports. Like the burden of description and like kind of like the placing of where everything is, even stuff like describing people and the characters and things of that nature are very, very different, right? Like you're not going to write like an article about the NBA and like you're not gonna have to like describe LeBron each time. Like presumably if they're an NBA fan, they know what he looks like. You know what I mean? Whereas in a book, it'd be very, very different. So like all these like kind of small things that help me learn and kind of transition from this one type of writing that I did a lot of to this other type of writing that I'm doing a lot of now. I feel like was a big part of me being able to kind of just improve and learn what's going on. So yeah.
There you go. So now with your writing, obviously a lot of fantasy, that kind of nature. Were you always into fantasy type books or reading literature, that kind of thing? Or
Oh
did you
yeah,
just kind of like,
I would say definitely. I really liked. It's funny. I do really like reading now, but I feel like sometimes I don't have as much time for it because I'm like writing. But then I'll be like, okay, wait, I like wrote a lot recently, and now I'm like, okay, now I'm like kind of like tired or like burnt out, so I better start reading again to like remember why I really like writing and really like fantasy and that type of thing. You know what I mean? It's definitely always very interested in kind of fantasy and like storytelling in general growing up. And I would say that definitely has translated to what I try to write. You know what I mean? Like I try to write a book that I think, I would be kind of like that would have a lot of fun reading. You know what I mean? So yeah.
right? Now, did you take a lot of inspiration from like what kind of fantasy? I guess because I know even with something I learned recently, RPG is such a broad stroke of
Oh
the
no, it definitely
brush.
is. I would
What
say
particular
that.
fantasy are you into?
Oh, so it's kind of funny. So I definitely have a few. Yeah, like my Mimic and Me series is my probably the series I'm best known for right now, which is it's a lit RPG, humorous lit RPG series, and I have a few others kind of coming out right now that are also in the humorous realm. And I would say the Crown Tournament, there's definitely a lot of jokes and interplay there too. Like I feel like when you have these kind of like very vibrant characters, it's very easy for there to be a lot of that type of thing. So it's funny. I would actually say that I would say that I don't really write what I like really liked reading growing up. Like yeah, like the series that I liked the most growing up was definitely George R. R. Martin's A Song of Fire and Ice series, and that's like very much like a drama. There is like some humor in there, obviously, because again, like I feel like when you have like all the characters and they're bouncing off each other, it's very natural for there to be certain humorous moments, which is something I try to take from. But I feel like that's definitely not like a humorous series. But I feel like the reason why I feel like I found my like kind of like flow with these types of humor series is more just like I feel like I was inspired to write by this type of book, but the story that I'm like better suited for writing, I think due to my personality and what I do with my spare time, is more of like the humor story where it's more like like I'll kind of just be like I'll be like going on a walk, or I'll be like I spend a lot of time coaching at my old high school. Like I coach high school water polo, so like I'll be coaching and something funny will happen. But okay, this is like kind of like something that's like very translatable to a book. Like I feel like it's weird. Like I think the thing that I think people find funny in Mimic and Me, for example, is that there's a lot of like kind of like universal experiences. Like at the start
Mhm.
of the story in Mimic and Me, the main character has like this like kind of crappy boss who's like kind of like just treating him like garbage and kicking him around, and then at the end he discovers this secret, and the boss tries to kill him and he has to defend himself, right? And I feel like that's like kind of almost like an exaggeration of something that people feel a lot in their daily life, where they're like, oh man, like I'm like kind of bummed out at work today, but or like, oh, I'm trying to like actually like do a good job at work, but like there's these guys are like kind of like sabotaging me or whatever. Like I feel like there's these types of experiences where like if you like put it in a fantasy world and then you like dramatize it a lot, people will find it very, very funny. Like, oh, that's like very, very goofy. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I would say that's what it's at.
Nice. Now, before writing the Crown Tournament together with Shami, you guys were in the same writing group. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Like I said earlier, I definitely credit the writing group a lot for allowing me to improve my craft and kind of figure out like how like a good style for me and all that.
Now, how did this writing group come about? Was it an inspiration by somebody? Did a bunch of you guys already have a group kind of going, and then we're like, you know what, let's sit down and if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit like how you guys meet up, or I don't know if it's too how personal it is, or how much you can explain if it's some kind of like secret society for authors that y'all just sit there.
No. The reason I can't explain much is because I was just invited to the group. I'm actually the person to most recently.
Okay.
So I feel like the lore and scaffolding and all this intricacy. When I was there, I was like, hey, well, this is a great group. Like, hello everyone. So I don't really know the like the details, because when I showed up, it was already a completely formed group. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I don't really know, but I feel like the things that we do, or kind of like reading each other's work and critiquing each other and like kind of highlighting things to improve that's definitely invaluable. That I can definitely speak to. But in terms of how to make the group, I don't know. I was literally the last person to join the group. So yeah.
Well, so Shamley regularly posts a writing group whiteboard on Facebook, and she regularly pumps out about 100,000 words each and every month. And I know that you're on the board as well, and trying to, I guess, your best to match those numbers on many months. With your first book, Strength of 1,000, was published in April of 2020. How did you do that? How were you able to like keep up with that?
So that one I actually wrote a long time ago. That was when I was like on the train to work all the time. So I feel like I was able to write a long book. I actually wrote all those books when I was on the train. I feel like I was able to write these long books because I was like kind of like stuck on the train without anything else to do. It's like if you add them up, like if you're forced to work like 2 hours a day on this, and then you add it up over I worked in finance for like 2.5 years. If you add it all up, that's like that's like freaking like 800 hours or something crazy like that, right? There's no way it's 800 hours. I'm really bad at math. It's like
Oh, no.
yeah, it's way more than that. So yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how that started. But and then like I said, after COVID, I was trying to become a full-time writer. And in 2021, I actually didn't get a book out. I feel like that was like a time period of significant struggle for me. But I feel like it's funny that you mentioned the board and the group in general, because I feel like having the board and the group and everyone kind of like not like a friendly competition is definitely very, very motivating. It's like, okay, well, I see how everyone else is doing good, and I gotta get out of bed and get some stuff done. And I feel like the other area where the group really helps out is, I feel like, because I feel like I've improved my skills a lot with the group, I feel very confident in what I'm putting out. So I feel like when you're like confident in the product, then you can also go like much quicker, because you're like, okay, well, I actually know this is going to be good. So I'm like, okay, let's kind of get this next out, get the next out. So yeah.
So what you're saying is, when you need to pump out some books, you go sit on the train and sit on there until you get it done, right?
Okay, so that actually kind of did happen. Funnily enough, that did happen the other day, where I was so my parents live like 45 minutes away from me, but my brother and sister live in Seattle. So like through like naturally, I end up being the person who helps them out with a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? Because my brother and sister live in Seattle. And I live in California with them. And yeah, that actually did happen recently, because I was trying to get some work done on a book, and I was going to visit my friends in San Francisco later that day, and then everyone was just like going on and on in the background. And at the end, I really was like, all right, I'm just going to get on the train and get my work done there. And it's funny, like I always feel like that joke where they're saying like, yeah, like people don't they never end up going on their deathbed being like, man, I wish I spent more time at the office. And I'm like, man, I'm trying to spend more time on my commute right now so I can focus. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of what happened there. But in general, no, like in general, I'm just kind of like, working wherever I can work, and try to get stuff done.
So shoot, I have an hour and 15-minute commute to my work, going one way. I live in North Carolina. Everybody asks me how I hate, how much I must hate this commute, and I'm like, no, I get to listen to audiobooks for an hour and 15 minutes one way. Like, I
Oh,
can't tell
nice,
you how
nice.
many
What
audiobooks
books
that
have
I've
you
listened
been?
to.
What books have you been listening to recently?
The book that I'm listening to right now is The Deer and the Dragon, and I'm like roughly halfway through it. I'm kind of, I don't want to say confused. It's just been a lot of pivots that I'm not saying that they're bad. They're bad pivots. They work with the story. It's just happened at points in time where I'm having to focus on the road more so than listening. It's just that
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
wait
I
a
know what
minute,
you
wait a
mean.
minute.
I know what you mean. I
So
know
I'm
what
like,
you
let me
mean.
let me
I know what
back
you
up a
mean.
chapter. Let me re-listen to this because I don't think I caught everything that I should have caught because
Yes, yes, I
I
know what
think
you
I
mean.
missed something. Having that hour and 15-minute commute, just kind of, it's nice. I like to have this time to listen to audiobooks, and my
Yeah,
wife even says like she works 2 to 3 minutes away from where we live. She's like, it must be nice to have all that
yeah,
time to
yeah,
listen to
yeah, yeah. You have
audiobooks.
like the excuse. Yeah,
So
exactly, exactly.
now, do you have anything specific that you need to do to prepare yourself for sitting down to write? Like any kind of rituals? You have to like,
I drink a lot of coffee.
okay.
Um, uh, drink a lot of coffee. I drink a lot of water. I try to have like I try to have like a lot. It's like I'm like fueling up, right? Like I feel like I just have like a bunch of drinks on my desk. And I'm like, okay, like time to drink some water, time to drink some coffee, time to focus up, all that stuff, right? It's gonna sound kind of weird, but I have like a folder of like things on my desktop where if I'm feeling like not very motivated, I'll just like look through these pictures of things that like I feel like motivate me, and they're just like random. They're just like completely random things, but they're just things where I'm like, like I'm going through my day. And I'm like, oh, I thought this was pretty inspirational, so I'll save it in the folder, and then obviously like later on when I'm not feeling as motivated, if I see this if I see this image that motivated me previously, I'll then feel that spark of motivation to keep going. I do a lot of like outlining before I start writing, but I feel like what I've been trying to do now is like I'll like outline a portion of it, and then I'll write it, and then I'll outline another portion, and then I'll write it. That's been working very well for me. I feel like it's kind of like it's like you're shifting the different parts of your brain that do this work. Those are probably my two or three main things. I feel like I guess the fourth thing that I would say, I have some students who like writing, so they always ask me what it's like because, like I said, I coach high school sports, and if they're into writing, they'll go, hey, what's up with this? And I feel like one thing I try to do is to try to sit in front of my computer a lot because I feel like it's very easy to like leave and then I'm like goofing off. But if I feel like I'm just sitting in front of my computer and it's not too much like I'm not like going online or anything, it's very easy to get a lot done. Like you kind of like are forced. It's like kind of like what I was saying with like being on the train forever. It's like you end up kind of being forced to just get stuff done. It's like not like you have anything better to do, right? So
Right.
it's like, yeah. So that's I would say that's kind of what I try to do. But I feel like I can definitely I can definitely improve my writing techniques and things of that nature for sure. I think I definitely can continue to stand to improve, and I try to learn up and pick up anything I can.
So you mentioned having that folder of inspirational things. That's actually like ingenious because I know when I'm sitting at my desk, it's kind of that like I sit down, I am staying here until I'm done with whatever I'm working on,
Yes,
or
exactly, exactly.
I have to get up for something, for my son. But I'm pretty much like immovable once I sit down. I'm like, okay, I have to get what I need to get done. Having that folder of inspirational things, that is amazing because like you were saying with once you're not feeling the motivational juices flowing
Yeah,
anymore.
I just kind of like click it, and I'm like, hey, okay, like, yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly. So, yeah, that's kind of what I try to do, and then, yeah, I would guess I feel like that's kind of what I've got for motivation. I walk a lot in the middle of the day, but I'm not sure if that's like beneficial. I think I just like walking. But yeah, that's kind of what I got, I guess.
I mean, and imagine sitting at your desk trying, telling yourself, hey, I'm going to pump out, I'm not sure, and forgive me if I'm giving out unreasonable numbers here, but like you say like to yourself, I'm going to pump out 5,000 words in this sitting.
Yeah, I
You
mean
get
that's
to,
what I try to do, which obviously does not always does not rarely occurs, but that is actually what I try to do. Like I'll try to be like I'm going to try to pump out like like a couple thousand words, 5,000 words, 4,000 words in this sitting, and it like you said it's a challenge. So
and imagine, you're probably hitting like halfway, you're like, okay, we're almost there. You get into 3/4 and you're just like
Exactly.
the
Especially when I'm like writing late at night. I'm like, man, go to bed sounds pretty good right now. So
yeah.
yeah, no,
So
100%, 100%.
so I imagine not only having that inspirations folder for yourself, and then even walking just to get your mind off of it, just for a couple, or at least your body moving out of that place to do something else, so to
Yes,
get things
yes.
flowing again, blood pumping and everything like that. So that's really, some really cool advice. Now there is a rumor that all the members in the writing group are self-published authors. Is that correct or accurate?
Yeah.
And then, are there any other names in your guys' group that you would recommend that we check out?
Yeah. I would say basically just everyone. I feel like it's funny. I was actually talking to the group about this. I was talking to the group about this yesterday, but I really feel like one fundamental like this is gonna sound really weird, but I feel like the like variance between like book success and book skill is like wider than I'd like to admit. You know what I mean? Like where like you can write like a really good book and it can do like really really good or not as good. Um um or you can write like a not so good book and have it, get you'll get kind of lucky and you'll do good. So I would say that everyone in the group, this guy in our group, James Duvall, who he's still publishing this, he's still working on this book, but it's a Dragon Academy series. Fantastic first 2 chapters. So when that book comes out, I think people should definitely read that one. I would say Scott in the group, Scott Killian, he's got more books coming out. He has a Dungeon Core book, the Lich Core book, which I think I've really enjoyed when I read it. I would say Dana in our group, Dana Artist, she has her in Daylight and Darkness series, which I actually have the books of those they're like upstairs. They're not like, I don't have them at the desk, but I have those books and I actually really, really like those books. It's hard to describe. It's kind of like a romantasy, I guess, kind of. It's not quite like that, but I actually do really, really like that book. So that's a book that I recommend to my students when they ask me what to read. I feel like everyone in the group works very hard and has a lot of ability. Oh, and actually, funnily enough, the person who started this conversation, our friend Mary, also in the group, she has her Garden Core series, also a Dungeon Core series, and I believe the second book is actually coming out quite soon. So yeah, I mean, I think in general, like like I said, I think everyone in the group has a lot of. I feel like everyone in the group brings their own talents and capabilities, and I feel like when I'm working in the group, it's very helpful in my writing because I'm kind of like synthesize it and things of that nature. So
And I imagine it's always nice having a sounding board to bounce
yeah,
things off
100%,
of, people
100%,
that
100%.
they're going to critique you, but they're not gonna just break you down. They're going to critique you and give you constructive criticism
Yeah,
back.
100%, 100%.
Awesome. Well, that's great that you guys have found that group. We'll definitely have to check out more people in your writing group, and probably have them on here as well, just because I know we've talked to Shami, John, and yourself now. So going for the whole set now, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, as far as your book series goes, who is your favorite character, and like what's your favorite series that you've created?
The one that comes to mind that I really like is I like Finley and Sinsidious in Crown Tournament series because I feel like they have a cool growth arc of kind of having like a very righteous approach to things but not being very strong, and then they have to gain the like maturity and physical strength to match up to their ideals, and I think that's an arc that I really really like. And I've had a lot of fun writing them in book 2 as well. That one that kind of sticks out to me. I like in the Mimic and Me series. It's funny. I feel like in that series people really focus on the Mimic, but I really like the main character because he's like the straight man in the group, and I feel like there's a lot of opportunities for like a guy who is like the party in Mimic Me has a lot of these like extremely powerful characters who are all like kind of like pretty loony in their own way, and the main character is not super powerful, but he's like the straight man, so he's good at like kind of he's good at like wrangling everyone to get what needs to be done, like focusing them. And I feel like it's very fun to write that character because I think it's a funny character to write, but I also think it's a challenging character to write in a weird way because what I think I'm really trying to write with him is I'm trying to write a guy who's like humorous, but also like kind of like a natural leader, where like he's not as powerful as the other people in the group, but he's able to kind of get them to do what needs to be done and get them to focus and things like that. And I think there's a lot of scenes that I see people they'll like specific lines that he had where he's like kind of like joking around with his party members. So that one is definitely up there. And my favorite book series that I've written, I would say that Mimicking Me and Crown Tournament are definitely my best series in terms of their technical in terms of their technical writing ability. But I actually really like my Overdrive series too, because it's about people playing video games, which I have a lot of experience from esports coverage. So there's a lot of like funny inside jokes there, and that series didn't do nearly as well as these other ones, but I do occasionally get people who have worked in esports who will email me, and they'll be like, yeah, that's actually, it's crazy that you know exactly what it's like. And I was like, well, so I'm glad that I was able to kind of capture that spark there with that series. But I like I always just try to I was just trying to improve. Like I feel like the series that I'm writing now, I'm gonna like more than these series too, which I like. Like like it would be bad, I think, if my best work was behind me. But yeah, like I would say that that's my tentative answer for right now.
All right. Now, outside of your series, what is one of your favorite series outside of your own works, and any other favorite like books or authors that you have personally?
Yeah, that's a good question. I well, so it's funny because actually before joining Shami's group, I actually already really liked the Frith Chronicles series, which is why it's funny because I ended up being lucky enough to work with her on this spin-off. So I think that because I knew the series beforehand, I really liked it. I was able to kind of like really try to make sure that I did what put out something I felt really proud of. And another one that I've been really liking recently is it's a series called Dead Tired. It's by Raven's Dagger. He has a pseudonym, but I've been really liking it. It's about this it's a humorous lit RPG story. So it's about this lich who like comes back into the world. He's like super powerful, and the world's like completely changed around him. And the reason I like that series is because I feel like it's funny in a very natural way. Like I kind of just read them like, dang, this is like very, very funny. There's like there's just a lot of jokes in it. I'm like, oh, this is a series. Like I like writing these series that are very humorous, a lot of jokes. So that was one that I read recently where I was like, man, I feel like I was really able to learn from this series. The joke ratio was very, very well done there. So yeah.
You like it a little more the more light side of the series rather than the series darkness.
I would not. So that's interesting. I feel like I do like both. Like I like, there are darker series that I like, but it's yes, like I would say that right now, especially because a lot of times I feel like when I try to read a book, I'm also trying to like learn from it. So I think because I've been writing a lot in this type of space, and I really like writing in this type of space. When I read these books, I'm then able to kind of be like, oh, I like, it's kind of like it's like I spent a lot of time coaching, right? So it's like watching like a game film. Like, oh, I like the move that was done there. I like that. I was like, oh, that's really good. So yeah, that one's one that's definitely stuck with me recently. Where I was just like, man, I really like what some of the stuff that was going on here. So
So awesome. Yeah, kind of using the toolbox analogy, take what you like, leave what you don't. So going back to the Crown Tournament, both it and Mimic and Me are collaborations, but I've heard other authors say collaborations are difficult to pull off. How did your collaborations work with other authors, and then obviously with Crown Tournament?
yeah, so in Crown Tournament, what happened was that me and Shami discussed the outline. And we spent a good amount of time on various brainstorming sessions. Funnily enough, actually, most of them were in person this time around because I just drove up to Stockton to see her when she was like in town for a few days, and then we were able to get a very good brainstorming session in. And after that, what happened was that she created the initial outline, which was quite in depth, and then through my process, I expanded that outline and began writing. So I did the first draft. As we were doing the first draft, we ended up realizing there were certain areas where the story could be improved or changed, or additional content could be added in. So that happened. And then what happened was that by the time I finished like Act 2 of Shami's original outline, we decided to create like a new Act 3. So at that point, Shami like then went on to recreate the Act 3, re-outline it. We then discussed it further, and then again I finished the first draft of Act 3. And after I finished the first draft, Shami then goes through and works on the second draft in editing. So I try to make sure that it's like a good first draft. So it's not like it's not like it's a trillion red lines everywhere. You got to change everything. But yeah, that's kind of how it worked. And then for Mimic and Me, it was very similar. It was a very similar process. In that one, Cassius did the original outline, but I feel like we ended up kind of taking the story in like a pretty different direction with regards to the tone. So there was a lot of rewriting on both parties, kind of focused on making the story more like humorous and enjoyable. I feel like that one, it also ended up working. Like I feel like both of us had some pretty good jokes, and then we kind of just collaborated on that and kind of made it go. I feel like for the like Mimic of Me, since it's like more of like a humorous book, I think that the jokes are what really make the story run, and kind of making sure that the plot is like is like a very good plot that can then be built off of from like a humorous sense. Whereas in Crown Tournament, I feel like the characters and plot are both driving the story, whereas Mimic Me I think is more like character and humor driven. So yeah, which I think led to some differences in how the stories were written, but ultimately that was kind of like the general process for basically all the collaborations I've done.
Awesome. Yeah. And I've always wondered that myself of, is it one person writes, the other person edits, or,
Yeah, that's what I've done.
Now, what led you to decide to write a trilogy set in someone else's established world, and how did you approach Shami with your ideas on this? Like, did Shami come to you?
So,
did you go to her?
No, so she actually asked me to collaborate on it. I was very excited, so I immediately said yes. And what happened was that we ended up just basically talking through about things that we like and that we like in stories and that would work together. So obviously I have a background of being very passionate about sports. So I was like, so this type of competitive like tournament series works really well. And then it's funny because me and Shami are both big fans of the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. So we were kind of joking. That was actually something that we were joking about because in Yu-Gi-Oh anime it is based on like competing in these tournaments, and there's like grand stakes associated with the tournaments. But despite these grand stakes, it has to be mediated through them playing this card game, right? And then we were like, okay, like how can we design a world to make it so that the competition is mediated through this physical battle instead of, for example, like a battle between armies, right? Which would be like I think much more logical without the world building behind it. So that's kind of how I got started, and then we kind of just worked really hard and talked a lot and came up with the characters and kind of I had like a lot of ideas that I proposed, and then I was able to kind of Shane was kind of like able to be like a great sounding board for me in terms of figuring out what would work and what wouldn't. And she was like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is pretty good. I feel like that I feel like I have a tendency towards liking to create scenes that are very intricate and complicated, which is I think a strength of this series and of of how I try to write in general. But there's definitely times where I go overboard. So I feel like that was like a very good thing where it's just like, okay, like this is way too complicated, man. Like what the heck is going on over here? So it's like yeah. So I'd say that overall is kind of how it happened.
Did you get to design any of the Eldred? Did you get to kind of have any like input on as far as?
I did in book in the Crown Tournament series. I definitely designed I worked with Shami to design some of the Eldrin.
Which ones?
I think like I said earlier, I think the I really like the Grave Moth, and I also really like the Sirocco Drake. Those are two that I really like. The Tanuki is obviously more of like a real creature, but it was shifted into a like you have to like interpret it the right way. I would say I liked I liked those. There were some other. Oh man, this is like a tricky question. There were some others that like I feel like were that I was able to kind of have fun with, kind of bringing into the story that I also like in book 1 there's a carbuncle, and then in book 2 there's various like water creatures that they battle on the stage. I would say it's probably still the the Grave Moth. I think it's very cool, but it's definitely a narrow competition because I think the Drake is pretty cool too. And like I said, some of the other minor ones where they're only showing up for one chapter, but I feel like I had a lot of fun writing them. Like the Ushioni in book one, I also had a lot of fun writing that one. He was like in a bit more, like he was in like kind of like a chapter and a half. So, but I thought he was a fun character to write. That one was also pretty good. But yeah, I would say that, yeah, as you can see, this is really going to go on for a while. I would say that for the sake of just keeping it moving, I would say it's probably the Grave Moth, but a loose in pencil. So yeah.
Now, throughout her whole series, is there, because we have the steps of the Pillar of Ruma, was there any steps or maybe like a favorite quote of the series that you had that kind of like resonated with you as an author or as a person?
So the one that comes to mind immediately that I really enjoyed is I enjoyed the second to last chapter in the last book where they're they have to accept their death to the Epoch Dragon, and then they're revived in the next chapter. But I feel like that scene of acceptance really sticks with me. But I am mildly frustrated because not because of that scene or anything of like that, but because there is something that it's in one of the middle books that I remember really sticking with me, but I can't remember it right off the top of my head. So I'm like telling you the one that is immediately off the top of my head, which I guess technically if it's immediately off the top of your head, it means it's sticking with you a little bit more. But regardless, that'd be one that I really like because I feel like in that scene, the acceptance of the characters and the it's like a YA series, right? So there is a degree of like maturity involved, like he certainly thinks he's going to die in that moment, and there's been a bit of a time skip since the end of the series, so there's like a maturity there, which I thought was poignant. Am I saying the word right? Whatever, in a YA series, and I also feel like there was a lot of respect between. It was interesting because there was a lot of respect between the individual characters who were going there, who accepted their death, but also had a great deal of there was like a bittersweet camaraderie there that really sticks with me. So yeah, that would be the answer off the top of my head. But I am mildly annoyed that I can't remember the other answer. But regardless, I can't remember the exact quote, but I think it's when the scene that I'm thinking of, but I'm frustrated because I can't remember the exact quote. The scene that I'm thinking of is I believe it's in book 4 where they have to battle over the sovereign dragon. I feel like again that was a very similar situation where the princess was willing to really risk it all despite you know not being aware that she was outmatched there, right? And I feel like that was I guess those are kind of similar scenes, but I feel like both of them had that type of I guess maturity is the best way to the dutiful maturity is how I would describe it in those scenes that I really appreciated. So yeah.
I know with me, like any of the Luther quotes, like just about literally any of them were my favorite. I know the one that sticks out to me the most is when Volk was talking to Luther about how to defeat the Dread Pirate Callisto, and Volk's like, "Hey Luther, how would Mathis have done this?" And Luther essentially was just like, "I don't know. He wouldn't have got himself into this place to begin with, so
Yeah, that's
we
funny.
don't have to worry about it." Wrapping it up, kind of with the long form portion of it. Any particular advice that you would give to young and upcoming authors that you wish you would have known before you started getting into writing yourself?
Yeah, I would say that I like I said, I have some students who are really interested in writing, and they'll ask me, and my number one point of feedback is to that it takes a lot of work and to be okay with failure. Those are easily the two things I would say. I've had a lot of failures, and I've done a lot of hard work. Like it sounds really simple, but I would like actually like really really stress. Like imagine I said that like 100 times. Like I just feel like those are such like important critical things that people need to, if they really want to write, I think they need to be cool. They need to be accepting of. So yeah.
It's not like you're gonna sit down, type out 100,000 words or 150,000 words for a book in a sitting and have it published and have it just go straight to the number one bestseller overnight. You gotta sit down, do the work, do the the due diligence of typing and editing and all that good stuff, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get into a bit of a lightning round here. First one's gonna be, what house in Hogwarts would you be in if you were in Harry Potter?
I've been told that I would be in Hufflepuff, which I think is true.
Are you a plotter or a pantser?
I would say I'm definitely a plotter to an extreme degree. Like like I said, my main writing style is to make an outline and then to expand the outline and then to expand the outline further. So yeah. I'd say very much on the plotting side.
Hardcover or ebook?
So funnily enough, I actually would take the middle ground. Like I actually think I'm more of like a paperback person. Funnily enough,
Ooh.
but I prefer ebooks over hardcover, which sounds really weird. I think just because I feel like that's like almost like based on storage convenience. Like I feel like hardcovers they're very hard.
Tea or coffee? I think you might have answered this a little bit
Yeah,
earlier.
no, I'm definitely coffee. Definitely coffee. I like tea as well. But I'm definitely coffee overall.
Favorite writing spot, whether it be in your house or not?
Yeah, no, it's just on my desk. Like nothing too special. Just working on my desk. I think the reason why is because I like working in my PJs. It's very weird to do that in public. So
Hey, not many jobs give you the opportunity to sit in PJs and work.
yes.
Are you a villains or an anti-heroes person?
It's kind of lame to say. I don't know, but I would say right now, like off the top of my head, I would say more of like a villains guy. I think, I think having the I think when you have like a more clearly drawn line, you can go in some pretty interesting directions. So yeah,
Board games or video games?
I would say board games now. Like I would say I was definitely more like a video games guy for a long time, but I would say board games now.
And then in one sentence that would capture your writing style.
I try to make characters that people can enjoy and relate with. I think that
If any of your protagonists from any of your series had a theme song, what character would it be and what song would it be?
there's a song that I think about when I think about certain characters. This is kind of a cheat. I have a new story that I'm writing, my Heirs to the Shade YA story, and the main character there makes me think of the song Untouched by the Veronicas. But the reason why she does is because that's just a song that a friend I know likes who's helping with this character. So I feel like that's kind of cheating, but that's the best I've got off the top of my head.
If people are looking for you online, how can people find you and your books and your social media?
Yeah, I need to do a better job of making a website, but I have a Facebook page, Facebook Ryan Tang 203. People will be able to get updates on my stories there on my Facebook page at Ryan Tang 203, and I also have my author page on Amazon, where people will be able to follow me and get information on my upcoming stories, of which there's a few. So yeah.
All right. Well, again, everybody, just want to remind you that today that this episode is going live is going to be Crown Tournament 2's release date. So if you guys have not already gone out and either downloaded or ordered your copy, I strongly suggest you to, because again, we're getting more mystical creatures, I'm guessing, and
Oh yeah.
we're moving along into the tournament. So we're definitely excited to look for that. We want to thank you for coming out, Ryan, and all of Ryan's links are going to be in the description below. And next week, we're going to be starting on the 4th book in the series, Plague Arcanist. So definitely excited about that.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time.